I want to give a special shout out to my patrons, to my Bibliosprend, Bibliosworn, and Bibliomancers. Thank you so much for supporting my hobby and passion even more. It means a lot to me. Hi everyone, Petrik here. Today's video will be my April TBR, and in the month of April, I plan to read 7 or 8 books. I'm not sure whether that's possible or not, but at the very least, I think I will be doing a better job at reading better than in the month of March, because in the month of March, I read only about 4 books. So yeah, I think that's the lowest number of books I read within a month in a very, very long time, or probably ever. But I think that should be understandable because in the month of March, I had my marriage, and also Elden Ring, which I'm still playing to this day. Honestly, Elden Ring has taken so much of my reading time. It is insane how good this game is. This is also why last month I mentioned that I won't be able to read big books for a while. But I'm hoping that starting from the month of April, I will be able to start reading big books again. By big books, what I mean is 600 pages or longer book. So yeah, most of the books that I plan to read in the month of April are sequels, and 2 of them are actually in my March TBR because I wasn't able to get to them. I will be putting them into this month's TBR. And the first book that I plan to read this month is The Relic of the Gods by Philip C. Quaintrell. So I'm reading this right now. I'm about a quarter into it, and this is shaping up to be the best of the series so far. This is the 3rd book in the Echo Saga series, a series that I've been enjoying so much. I think this is a series that keeps on getting better and better with each book. And if you love Dragon Rider, you love dragons, and you love classic fantasy with a modern voice, with some twist to it, I think you will love this one. And after that, I plan to reread Heir of Navren by Michael J. Sullivan. This is the 3rd and final omnibus in the Riyria Revelation series. The Riyria Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan has always been one of my favorite series, but after reading through Riyria Chronicles and then doing a second read of this series now, I think my personal ranking for this series will definitely jump up. During my first read of Riyria Revelations, Heir of Navren was without a doubt my favorite of the entire series. And even to this day, I still think that this is Michael J. Sullivan's best work so far. Heir of Navren consists of Wintertide and also Persepolis. Persepolis, in my mind, still remain one of the best ending to a series that I've read in fantasy. So I'm hoping that this second read will be even better. I plan to read this within last month, but as I said, I couldn't get to it. I will definitely get to it within this month, and then I will make a video on why you should read the Riyria Revelations. And after the Heir of Navren, I plan to read Sword of Destiny. I have done a full spoiler-free review on The Last Wish. I really enjoyed The Last Wish. I think there were a few, maybe only one actually, short story that didn't really click with me. But overall, I really enjoyed it, even though some of the sentences are a bit awkward here and there, but I think that's mostly due to the quality of translation. And for those of you who didn't watch my interview with Lauren Panepinto, the creative director of Orbit Books, in that video there is an announcement. So there will be a Sword of Destiny Illustrated Edition coming out. Not sure when yet, but Lauren Panepinto is working on it right now. So I'm really happy about it. This means that The Last Wish Illustrated Edition is selling a lot of books. Because for illustrated books like this, if the sales doesn't do well, there won't be a continuation. But because there will be a continuation, that means that The Last Wish Illustrated Edition has done well enough. So yeah, I'm really happy about this news because the illustrated edition of The Last Wish looks gorgeous. And then after that, I plan to do a second. And then after that is another reread, and this is the 3rd read of Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. So Brandon Sanderson has been on a lot of news within the month of March, and yeah, because The Last Metal is coming out within this November, this is The Last Metal is one of my most anticipated books. It is my most anticipated books of this year, and yeah, I plan to reread the entire Mistborn series before the release of, The Last Metal. And I've said this over and over again, but I'm pretty biased about Mistborn Trilogy because this is the series that sparked my love for reading fantasy books. And this time, I will be reading the Mistborn Trilogy using the Dragonsteel edition because personally, I actually love reading through a book using a special edition. I know that some readers buy special edition only to display them. I'm not that kind of reader. If I buy a special edition, do know that during my next read, I will be using that special edition because after all, I spent my money on it already. The Dragonsteel edition of the Mistborn Trilogy is so beautiful, and I'm hoping that this will somehow enhance my reading experience because sometimes illustrated edition or a more beautiful edition could actually do that to the narrative. I'm not afraid reading books using my expensive edition because in general, actually, I never damaged my books while I was reading, so yeah, that's not an issue for me. And after I finish reading Mistborn, I will read the first binding by R.R. Virdi. This is the first book in Tales of Tremaine. This has been one of my most anticipated books. I've never read anything by R.R. Virdi, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is his first traditionally published fantasy work. Before the first binding, Virdi has released plenty of self-published fantasy books, and I think they are all urban fantasy and they are all very well praised. But for this one, other than the gorgeous cover art done by Felipe de Barros, I've always been interested about this because the premise has really reminded me of the Kingkiller Chronicle by Petrik, which is one of my favorite series of all time. Seriously, I mean, just listen to this premise. Judge me for what you will, but you will hear my story first. I buried the village of Ampur under a mountain of ice and snow. Then I killed their god. I've stolen old magics and been cursed for it. I started a war with those who walked before mankind and lost the princess I loved and wanted to save. I've called lightning and bound fire. I am legend and I am a monster. My name is Zari, and this is the story of how I let loose the first evil. Thus begins the tale of a storyteller who met a singer on the run and looking for obscurity in the tavern bar. But neither sin nor enemy is easily forgotten. No one can escape their past, no matter how they might strive, and all stories must come to an end. Doesn't that remind you of The Name of the Wind by Petrik? Seriously, I am so looking forward to reading this. And other than the first binding, I have actually acquired a lot of my most anticipated arcs of this year, so I had a difficulty in choosing which one I should read first. But after asking my patrons, I think the majority of the votes have decided that I should be reading and reviewing the first binding before I get to the other books, such as In the Shadows of Lightning by Brian McClellan, Until the Last by Max Shackle, and many more. So yeah, I'm so looking forward to reading the first binding within the month of April, and I will be doing a review on this channel as well. And after that, I plan to read a self-published fantasy book, a very highly praised self-published fantasy book right now. It is Of Darkness and Light by Ryan Cahill. This is the second book in the Bound and the Broken series, so this takes place after Of Blood and Fire. And just like the Echo Saga, this is another classic fantasy that's told with a modern voice, and I really enjoyed Of Blood and Fire, but The Fall, the prequel novella to it, was even better. And apparently The Fall was actually written after the author Ryan Cahill wrote Of Blood and Fire, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Of Darkness and Light will retain the quality of writing in The Fall, or maybe even better than it, because after all, everything I've heard about Of Darkness and Light has proven that this sequel is supposedly significantly better than Of Blood and Fire and also The Fall. And this is a thick boy. It's more than 600 pages long. Well, the first binding is thicker because the first binding is 800 pages long, it's 350,000 words, but this one doesn't shy away from it. This one is almost 700 pages long as well. So this means that I will be reading a lot of big books within the month of April. I have no idea whether I will be able to read through them all or not, but I will try my best. And finally, the last book that I plan to read within the month of April is The Fall of Hyperion by Dan Simmons. This is the second book in the Hyperion Cantor series. I really enjoyed Hyperion, but just like The Last Wish, because this is a collection of short stories, there were a few short stories that didn't really work well with me. But the first 4 short stories in Hyperion was so good. It was incredible, and well, the ending of Hyperion was it was so abrupt. And I heard from many readers this is because Hyperion and The Fall of Hyperion was supposed to be one book, but it's divided into 2 books. So yeah, I'm hoping that The Fall of Hyperion, this super beloved classic sci-fi series, will actually conclude the first arc of Hyperion Canto satisfyingly. So that's all the novels that I plan to read within the month of April, and for the manga series that I plan to read within this month, I am planning to reread only Spy Cross Family. And because there is the anime adaptation coming out within this month, I think this is a right time for me to be reading through Spy Cross Family again. But if not, I will probably be reading Dr. Stone right from the beginning, maybe to the end. I'm not sure yet. So yeah, that's it. That's all the books that I plan to read within the month of April. Do let me know which books here that you think looks interesting to you or not. And please let me know which books you plan to read within the month of April. As always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support. Bye bye.